Good afternoon, everybody. My name is leZlie Lee Cam. You've seen my bio, and I'll be chatting with you for the next 15 minutes. I'm going to do a land acknowledgement. As a Carib person from Trinidad and Tobago, I am indigenous. The Caribs and the Arawaks are the indigenous peoples of the Caribbean. I want to acknowledge that I live, love, and dance on the indigenous lands of the many indigenous folks in Takaronto, which is covered by Treaty 13. And I issue a challenge to all of us as settlers to use our power and privilege to ensure that all Two-Spirit and indigenous people regain the rights and benefits that we take for granted on a daily basis. Today, I'm going to speak about the new toolkit, Living and Leading and Learning with Pride. It has been put out by the City of Toronto in cooperation with a working group which comprised of many community educators and activists like myself. You can access it online, and also you can get hard copies through Senior Services Long-Term Care Department with the City of Toronto. And Diane Lalonde will also be able to send you a link you can get online. So 5 key points I'd like to speak with you about today about how to work with us as 2SLGBTQI seniors. And this is something that's covered in this new toolkit. You will also be getting a promo video in which you'll be hearing our voices about why this toolkit is so important for us and for any one of you who is working with us in any kind of healthcare setting. So the first thing I'd like you to know is that you need to acknowledge our existence, the fact that we are here. Because many times when folks talk about seniors, we are left out. We are made to be invisible. We are forgotten. So what I'd like you to know is not about us, without us. I like to say, my second point is, our existence is our resistance. And part of my existence is one of my many mobility devices. This is Robin. And I use Robin on a daily basis to help me navigate the world. So in terms of being made to feel invisible, when you're older and you have a disability, and I identify as being differently abled because I was not born with a disability. I acquired this disability when I came out of a coma and experienced 5 intensive months of physio and occupational therapy. I had no sense of balance, and now I use a cane. And when older folks, whether we are queer, trans, or queer, trans, and Two-Spirit, when we use mobility devices, we become even more invisible. So please be mindful of ageism and ableism when you're working with us. The other thing that's happening to us as we get older is that we're going back into the closet. We're afraid of being treated badly, of the lack of care that we receive, if we receive any kind of care, and the quality of care. Myself, I experienced very bad treatment when I was in a rehab hospital after coming out of the coma. I have a very big voice, and I'm not going back into the closet. And everyone knew that I was a dyke. And as a result, there were a couple of PSWs there who used religion as a weapon against me and left me in my urine and feces and said to me that I would burn in hell. So these are the kinds of things we are still having to tolerate. And the reason why we are going back into the closet, unfortunately, here we are in 2022, about to enter a new year, and this is still happening to us. So we are asking you, please, to be mindful. We're experiencing violence in homes because of the fear of other residents and even our caregivers, PSWs and nurses within long-term care homes and rehab hospitals and any kind of healthcare setting. Homophobia, transphobia, and lesbophobia are part of our daily lives. So this kind of stress affects our mental, emotional, and physical well-being and really takes a toll on us. So we are asking you, please, to be mindful. The third point I would like to make is using the word queer. I'm sure you all hear that word now. It's under the acronym 2SLGBTQ. Q is also used for questioning. But the word queer was used as a weapon against us. I remember when I came out, and again, coming out, just so you know, is a white North American European concept. For many of us who are folks of color or who come from countries of color, coming out is a death sentence. So I actually didn't come out. I discovered that I was a lesbian. The word queer was not used back then in a positive way. So please be mindful when you're having conversations with us. Many of us cringe when we hear that word. I know a lot of younger folks are using that word now as they're coming out, and it's being used as an umbrella term. I myself, I describe my identity as a queer dyke, and I am always respectful when I use that word when I'm working with older 2S LGBTQ folks. My fourth point is I'm asking you to please try and use inclusive language as much as possible. Ask which name you would like us to use. Ask us if we feel comfortable with pronouns. Many of us don't know about pronouns. And it becomes a little problematic when you start explaining. If you say, well, my name is Maria and my pronouns are she and her, and the older person that you're working with does not understand what a pronoun is. You can explain, but that is not the main point when you're working with us. That kind of conversation can come later on. I myself do not use pronouns. I say I'm gender mysterious. And the reason I say that is because people decide on my gender for me, depending on the length of my hair and what I'm wearing, and even the sound of my voice. So I just came back from Barbados, and everybody was calling me sir and he and him. They simply looked at me and all they saw was a man. The other thing about being inclusive is to be mindful, again, not to assume when you see us. I have major problems using public washrooms, and so do many of my older trans women friends. So when you're in public washrooms, especially women out there, please do not police us in washrooms. We came up with a button that says, I just want to pee. Because once you go into the washroom, you close the door, you are safe and I am safe. So something as simple as that, using a public washroom becomes problematic. I am being read now as a trans man. I've been physically assaulted going into women's washrooms, and so have many of my older trans women friends. So in terms of being inclusive, there's the language and also how you see us in the world. Please do not make assumptions or try not to. My fifth point is to please leave your judgments and beliefs at the door. You know, when you go into somebody's home and you take your shoes off at the door, that is what we are asking you to do. Please leave your judgments and beliefs at the door. And it's really important because when you are doing your work, you can believe whatever you want to, but according to the Ontario Human Rights Code, you must be aware that we, 2SLGBTQI folks, are covered under 4 specific grounds: sex, sexual orientation, gender, and gender identity. And if you do not adhere to these rights under the Human Rights Code, if you do not recognize them and work with us in terms of that recognition, you and your organization could be in a lot of trouble if we decide to hold you accountable, because that's an accountability mechanism for us. This keeps happening, as I said, 2022, in homes, we are still being treated badly. In shelters, in many services where we need care, we are being treated badly. And that is why this toolkit, Leading and Learning with Pride, is so important. It gives you a step-by-step way of working with us, how you can run many workshops, how you can find ways of opening doors to conversations. I find when I say that my pronouns are gender mysterious, it opens the door to conversations about why pronouns are important. So there are little ways of, working with us that are non-threatening, where we don't feel we have to come out if we're afraid. For example, when you are working with us, if you say, oh, by the way, I participate in Pride, or I'm aware of Pride events that are happening, or if you approach us talking about, the rainbow, there are different ways of letting us know that you understand and that you care. In terms of religious beliefs, those religious beliefs are being used as a weapon against us. And I'm spending a little bit more time on this particular one, because when you're in any kind of care setting, especially when you're in a long-term care home or in a shelter, and that is a place that is now your home, it is really harmful and causes great hurt and pain when you use religion against us, because we are depending on you to take care of us and to treat us in the best way possible. So in the long run, you have the power and the privilege to improve and save our lives. I'd like to say a bit more about the toolkit and how it came about. So there was a toolkit called Diversity, Our Strength that was supposed to be used back in 2017. I was the chair of the Senior Pride Network at that time, and I found out that this toolkit had been developed in 2008 and was not being used. We refreshed the toolkit in 2017, and we were told by the city that it was going to be implemented in the city's 10 long-term care homes. And I later found out that that did not happen. In 2021, the city of Toronto decided to revitalize that toolkit, and they did a call out for community activists and community educators to join the working group in order to get our lived experience. And between September of 2021 and May of 2022, we worked long and hard on developing a toolkit that was user-friendly, hands-on, and it can be used in any kind of setting where you're working with 2SLGBTQI seniors. One of the things we highly recommend is starting a gender sexuality alliance in your homes, in any kind of setting, rape crisis centers, retirement homes, long-term care homes, and it's so easy to do. We also are asking you to work from an intergenerational perspective because, and now I can use the word queer, we are asking for queer youth and queer younger folks and queer and trans and two-spirit seniors to work together. Because if we don't work together, we are all going to end up not having a good time or having a good life. And it's really important for us to learn from each other. These days, it's a lot easier to come out, but it's a lot more difficult to be able to survive. And we share some of the same challenges. For example, older 2S queer and trans folks are having problems with housing, just like younger queer folks. We are having problems with our jobs or finding employment. We are having problems in terms of just, how we are being treated in the world, even though it's easier to be out. There's still these challenges that we face together. I'm actually the program coordinator for the Youth Elders Project at Buddies in Bad Times Theatre. Our 2022-2023 season just started. We had our first session on October the 24th. And this year we'll be doing things a little bit differently. We meet once a month. It's on a Monday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Please check out the Buddies in Bad Times Theatre website under the Youth Elders Project for more information on that. And I have sent Diane a couple of resources which I feel would really be helpful for all of you. There's a promotional video for the toolkit in which you'll be hearing our voices as 2SLGBTQI seniors, especially the voices of those folks who are living in long-term care homes. And it's so important for you to hear our voices. As I said at the beginning of this little presentation, we are made to be invisible. We are forgotten. So we are asking you to please, open doors to conversations, to please know that we are here, to please acknowledge our existence. The other thing I've sent to Diane that she'll be sending to you is a list of resources that are affirming for 2SLGBTQI seniors. And I'm also asking all of you in your different regions and cities across Ontario and Canada and elsewhere, when you're joining in to this presentation, to find out what resources are available in your areas. And if there are none, to please create resources, because you have the power and privilege to do that. And that is how you can be our allies. The other piece about being an ally that I like to talk about is it's so easy these days to challenge racism when you see it happening. You have to have a really good sense of self and a very strong sense of self when we ask you to be our ally in challenging race, transphobia, lesbophobia, and homophobia, when you hear those kinds of remarks. Because inevitably, somebody will turn to you and say, oh, you are one of them. Believe me, that is what's happening. So please, when you become our allies, please be mindful that you also will have to put up with that kind of discrimination. So we welcome allies, and there are different ways of working with us. I do workshops in terms of how you can work with us. So feel free to reach out to me. You can get my contact information from Diane. And the other piece I wanted to mention is there is a video from VHA, which is Visiting Homemakers Association. And it's one of the largest home care organizations in the Greater Toronto area, but they also have branches in London and Ottawa. And they have developed a video called Out at Home. And this gives you tips on how to work with us in our homes. I have had 7 years of accumulated home care because I'm a bionic dyke. I have a new brain and 2 new hips, and now I have a new ankle. And it's really scary when you have folks coming into your homes when you're 2SLGBTQI, as senior especially, because of the kinds of, the discrimination you're going to face, and the stares and the looks and the comments that you get. And this video Out at Home is a very helpful tool in terms of approaches that you can use in terms of how to work with us in a very positive way. There's nothing more difficult than being naked because we need to have showers and hearing something like, oh, you're one of them. Oh, you're going to burn in hell. So please be mindful when you're working with us. And we are just asking you to treat us the way you would like to be treated. I keep hearing Jesus said. Jesus never said to treat us in a bad way. Jesus never said that we were going to burn in hell. So we are asking you to be kind, caring, and compassionate, the same way you would like to be treated. And to remember, we are human beings. We're in your families. We're in your workplaces. We are your friends. We are your sisters, your brothers, your aunts, your children. And how would you feel if one of your family members were treated badly? For many of us, COVID has had a huge impact on our lives. And there's no going back. People keep talking about going back to normal. There's no going back. When 4,000 seniors died in long-term care homes in this province in the first year of COVID, nobody talked about the impact on 2SLGBTQI seniors. We were so isolated and lonely and made to be even more invisible because our chosen families were not recognized as essential caregivers. I myself experienced that firsthand when I fell down a flight of stairs and my ankle was broken. I was in a long-term care home for 2 months and in a rehab hospital for a month. And I had to fight because, as I said, I have a big voice. I had to fight with the long-term care home and the rehab hospital to have my chosen family recognized as my essential caregivers. So the isolation that we still face and the loneliness and the fear are still prevalent. And we are asking you, please, to make a change, to make sure that that stops. And you have the power to do that. As I said before, it's so important. The power that you have to improve and save our lives. And those are not just, hollow words. You do have that power, and that's all we are asking of you. We are also asking you, based on your beliefs, you do not have to accept us. Really and truly, you don't. We just ask that you respect us and to remember that we are here and we are not going anywhere. Things that you can do on your own is to educate yourselves. Look and see on Google. Google is your friend, different resources that are available. As I said, I've already sent out that list of resources which you can access. You can create your own resources. You can set up gender sexuality alliances. You can go into homes and visit us. Intergenerational work is so important when working with us. And celebrate Pride wherever you are, in your workplace, in your homes, in your rape crisis centers. It's so easy to do. Some people say, oh, well, it's an extra thing that we have to do. When you're working with seniors, include us, acknowledge our existence. When you say seniors, also say 2SLGBTQI seniors. That is the best way to include us, is to always acknowledge that we exist. And I started with that main point at the beginning, and that's that's the start, to acknowledge our existence. I am on the liaison committee for the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility. And that liaison table meets every 3 months. We had to fight. I'm part of the Senior Pride Network here in Toronto. We had to fight to get a seat at that table way back in 2016. And still there are groups at that table who are saying, we don't have any of them in our groups. It's really hard and distressing and painful when you hear that. And I am 69 and still doing fine. And I will continue my advocacy and my activism, not only for 2SLGBTQI seniors, but also for younger queer folks, because we have to work together to make things easier for both of our populations. And remember, we are here and we are not going anywhere. So in ending, I would ask you to please take a look at the toolkit. Diane will send you the link. Take a look at those videos. Take a look at my website, leZlieoutofthecloset.com, and reach out to us. We are here, we are waiting. Friendships are so important to us as we get older in all of our lives. And remember, one day too, if you are lucky, you will also be a queer senior. And I will end by saying, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. And thank you so much for your kindness and your compassion. I look forward to working with you again in the future. Please reach out to me. And as your queen of queer seniors, I say once more, thank you so very much. Please keep in touch.